What's going on, guys? It is Caleb, and today we are going to keep going strong on our HTML and CSS course. We are finally done with the majority of the HTML basics, and now we're doing our introduction to CSS, and overview. So let's go ahead and get started. So, first things first, let's go ahead, click over, and let's reset our code. So, seeing is believing. Take a look at the HTML file and the index HTML. Pretty standard stuff, right? You know all this stuff: headers, paragraphs, images, lists, and tables. Look in the preview pane. No surprises there. In fact, it's pretty ugly if you ask us. The Stylesheet.css tab, which we'll teach you how to use in this course, contains all the CSS styling information. Where HTML elements should go, what color they should be, and how big they should be, and more. We've commented out the crucial line in the index.html file. If you remove the comment, which is, if you remember, it's going to be a less than, exclamation mark, dash dash, and line 4 before the text, and after, if we comment out the ending comment, in line 6 after the text, you'll be able to see the magic CSS in parts. Don't delete any of the actual link tag. Instructions: remove the comment around the link tag on line 4. Then view the results in the preview pane to see what you'll soon be able to do with CSS. You can click full screen to see all the images. So if we go ahead and go with this in full screen, this is pretty much what it looks like, right? So this is kind of boring, honestly. I mean, it's kind of like I'd say it's kind of like a shitty website. So if we go back, all we have to do here is on line 4 is delete our little comment out here, and then delete this end of the comment over here after our link. And now if we go back to full screen, you can see a very dramatic change. This looks hundreds of times better than before. Excuse me. So let's save and submit our code, and away to go. Let's go on to the next lesson, and let's reset. Okay, so what CSS is. CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, is a language used to describe the appearance and formatting of your HTML. A style sheet is a file that describes how an HTML file should look. That is, we say these style sheets are cascading because the sheets can apply formatting when more than one style applies. For instance, if you say all paragraphs should have blue font, but you specifically single out one paragraph to have red font, CSS can do that. We'll talk more about cascading in section 4. So instructions are: click on the Stylesheet.css. It's that tab near the top of your screen next to the index.html file. We've put in the CSS to make the paragraph text red, but you need to add the CSS that will make the text between the span tags blue. Fill it in the code and click Save and Submit Code. So if we look over here in our actual preview, all we have right now is I'm a paragraph written in red font, but one of my words is blue, and that's not blue yet. So let's go ahead and tab over to our Style Sheet tab. And right here, we see that we have a little exclamation mark with a triangle around it because our rule for our span is currently empty. Well, this is when we're going to start to write our CSS. So we'll talk more about how to create these in a minute, but all you have to do right now is pretty much this is specifying all the span elements which are in our HTML. We're setting the rule for it. So if we take this paragraph up here, for example, the P is a paragraph tag, alright? If we look back over here in our actual HTML, we have the P right here for our paragraph tag. And our CSS rule is saying for all of our paragraph tags, change the color to red. That's why when we look in our preview, all of our paragraph or any of our paragraphs are going to be in the color of red. But if we look back in our HTML, we now see I'm a paragraph written in red font, but one of my words is, and then we see an opening span tag. And this is when we're going to add a new CSS rule for our span tag. And pretty much what we have to do is figure out how to change this word blue to the color of blue. And it's pretty simple to do that. All we have to do is come back to our Style Sheet tab, and right here we're just going to say color, colon, and then as you can see it automatically added a semicolon at the end, and now we're just going to type in space and then blue. And now if we look in our preview, we now see that our paragraph is red, but our span element is now turning blue because that's what we just specified. And if we go back to our index.html, we see that anything that's within our span tag is set to blue. And that's because, once again, we specified that rule in our style sheet. So if your letter or word blue is now the color blue, you're doing something right, and you should just go ahead and save and submit your code. That way we can go ahead and go on to the next exercise. So let's reset our code again. So why separate form from function? Great work. Look at you. You're already writing CSS. There are two main reasons for separating your form/formatting CSS from your functional content/structure HTML. You can apply the same formatting to several HTML elements without rewriting code. Example, right here they're just doing an inline style attribute and then saying the color of the red over and over. So pretty much instead of making all of our paragraphs or all of our span elements with an inline style set to the color of red, we can just specify it one time in our CSS style sheet, and then before we know it, all of them is going to be red because the style sheet applies for all of our span elements. So you can apply a similar appearance and formatting to several HTML pages from a single CSS file. Look at the HTML in the index.html. That's a lot of span tags. All those words are in regular font, but we want them to be super fancy. So the instructions are: go to the Stylesheet.css tab and tell the span selector that you want the font family to be cursive. Check the hint if you need help. So if we look over here, much of this is regular text, but some of it is fancy, and it's really, really big for some reason. Don't know why. So if we look over here, font size set to 100, and what we have to do is come once again in our span rule, and now we're just going to say font-family, colon, and then we're going to say cursive, like so. Now if we look over here and scroll down, we can see where it says it's now fancy. So let's save and submit our code. So awesome, way to go guys. I don't know why our text is set at 100. I'm just going to set that down to 10, or actually 10 is too small for you guys to see. Let's try 15. So 15, now you can see much of our text is regular, but some of it is fancy. And anytime you see anything in our span tag, for example, if we look over here, the word fancy is in between our span tag. Also the word newly fancified font, also the word flare, also royal pain. So if we look over here, fancy is cursive, newly fancified font is in cursive, flare is in cursive, royal pain is in cursive, fancy is in cursive again, and then CSS is also in cursive. So and that's only because we're selecting the span element and we're applying the font family rule set to cursive. So instead of, like I said earlier, coming into each of these span tags and adding an inline style, we're just making it, we're just putting it in our style sheet one time. We're just saying, hey, look, for every span element, set the font family to cursive. That way, it saves us a lot of time in our HTML, and instead of adding all the inline styles, we just add the one style sheet and it applies to all of our span tags. So save and submit. Let's go to the next lesson. So if it's in, it's out. We previously showed you how to do inline styling with HTML like so. And once again guys, inline styling is any time that you set a style attribute in any element or any tag. For this example, they're using a paragraph tag and setting the inline style attribute, and they're setting the color to red. So red, it says, if I can scroll over, it says red font, and then it closes out the paragraph. This is a less awesome way to style your website for the reasons we just mentioned. You have the right to the same code over and over, and if you want to make a big stylistic change to several elements, you have to change every single style tag. With a single CSS file, you only have to make the change in one place. There are two ways to put CSS in one place. The first is to put your CSS between the style tags, right in the same file as your HTML. These style tags go inside the head tag of your web page. Check out the example in the editor to the right. So if we look over here into our editor, this is pretty much just like linking in an inline style, but you're just specifying the style tag. It's now going to be a tag instead of an attribute, and it's also going to be put in your heading. Okay? And now this is only going to apply to the page that you're working on, as opposed if you were to have a style sheet or a CSS file, you can use that CSS file and link it in through multiple web pages, in which I'll show you how to link that later on. So also, this right here is pretty much the same concept of using a CSS file, except it's only specified for this page. So makes sense? Good. Hit save and submit code to continue. So save and submit, and we can see, check it out on purple, and we'll just run through the CSS right quick. We see that we have in our style tab, we see that we have a paragraph selector, and then we're specifying to set the color to purple. Now if we look at our HTML, all the paragraph tags are going to be set to purple because it relates to our style, which is in our head, which relates to the selector of the paragraph, and which relates to the rule of the color, and then we're also setting this to purple, obviously. That's the rule. So as long as it's purple, you should be good. So let's save and submit our code. Awesome, way to go. Let's start the next lesson. So let's reset, link it up. But there's an even better way. You know you should write your CSS in a total separate file, but how do you make sure your HTML file can see that CSS information? You do this by putting in a link tag, as you saw in the first exercise of this course, between the head tags of your HTML page. Your link tag needs 3 attributes. It needs a type attribute that should always be equal to text/CSS. This way, whenever you are linking in something, because you can link in different things, and I'll show you when we get into our JavaScript, you can start linking in JavaScript, and the HTML interpreter is going to be like, well, if you're linking in this, you have to specify what type it is, whether if it's going to be the text/CSS, which in this example we are doing, or if it's going to be JavaScript or some kind of other script. You know, there's a bunch of different things you can link in. We also have a rel attribute that should always be set equal to Stylesheet. A href attribute should point to the web address of your CSS file. In the editor to the right, you'll see 2 files, index.html and stylesheet.css. Insert a link to the stylesheet.css in the index.html. Check the hint if you need help. So pretty much what we're doing, if we look over here, you see that I want to be size 44 font. And if we look down here, this is just a paragraph saying that. Now if we look in our actual style sheet, once again we have the paragraph selector, and then we're setting the font size to 44 pixels. Well, now we have to link it up in our HTML. That way, the HTML knows what it's doing. And it's always good to put your links first, and your scripts and everything else that you're putting into your HTML file should always go before, you know, like your title and whatnot, just because it will load up first as opposed to like title. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but common practice, just to put it, that's the first thing that you would put into your head. So what we need to do is add a link. Now remember, we're going to use 2 or really 3 different attributes. So the first one, we're going to say type, and we're going to set the type attribute to text/CSS, okay, and now we're going to do a rel, R-E-L, and that's going to equal to Stylesheet. This is telling it what it is. So once we type in Stylesheet, now our last thing is to do is add our href, and now what we want to do is set this equal to Stylesheet.css. And everything looks good, good. And now all we have to do now is just close our link. Oop. And it's not working. Boom, 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 boom. What'd I do wrong here? If you're getting a strange number from the font size, try resetting your chosen link type text. Okay, relevance, style sheet. Did I spell style sheet wrong? S-T-Y-L-E-S-H-R-E-F, style sheet dot. Oh, that's what I didn't do. Style, and then I put a C instead of an S. There we go. Sorry about that. So I did it right. It's just I just didn't type it right. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-0 just to reset the editor, because I know if I save and submit, it's not going to let me pass because I was zoomed in. So just save and submit your code, and I'm going to zoom back in here, and I'm going to click Start Next Lesson. So PSA, self-closing tags. This brings us to a quick but noteworthy concept in HTML, the self-closing tags. Because nothing ever goes in between the link tags, it's okay to use a single set of brackets to the opening and closing tags. You do this like so. So it's pretty much just like the image tag, that you're going to have an open link, and then at the very end of your link, you're just going to have a self-closing tag, like so, by putting the / and then the greater than sign. You may also have noticed to do this you may have noticed us doing something similar with the image tag. Like I just said, it's just like the image tag because they're both self-closing. Most tags are not self-closing, but we'll point out the self-closing ones to help save you time in typing. Alright, hit save and submit code to proceed to the next stop on your world tour of CSS syntax. So just save and submit. And awesome guys, you finished this section. And that's pretty much it. If you liked the video, make sure to thumbs it up. Leave comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more. And until next time, guys, you have a good one.